Greetings, moviegoers. I'm the host. For this video, I'm going to talk about the best films of 2011. And some of you and most of the major critics out there have already made their top 10s or 20s of what they thought were the best in cinema. So I'm going to share with you my top 10 picks of what I thought were equally great. So without further ado, these are my top 10 picks, and I hope you enjoy. Number 10. Hugo. This film marks not only director Martin Scorsese's first foray into 3D filmmaking, but also a film the entire family can go see. And similar to what Pixar had going before they released Cars 2, this man can do no wrong, as he creates one of the most visually astonishing films I've seen in a while. As far as 3D movies go, this is one of those rare cases where it is a necessity that you see it in this format. Scorsese uses the 3D to such a great advantage that it becomes almost a character integrated within the story. Speaking of which, the cast is just as phenomenal to watch, featuring child actors Asa Butterfield as the title character and Chloe Grace Moretz as his trusted companion. There's also Jude Law, Sacha Baron Cohen, and finally we have Ben Kingsley playing a man who may or may not have something to do with the birth of cinema, as that's what this film centers around on. It's a movie that gives us a good, valid reason why we love movies and why we care for them so much. It's a magical story that's bound to become a classic. Number 9. The Descendants. Alexander Payne directs his first feature film since Sideways and delivers on yet another emotionally charged experience. George Clooney gives one of this year's very best performances as a father undergoing a midlife crisis as his wife suffers a fatal accident that puts her under a coma and now has to sort things out with his two rebellious daughters, one of them played exceptionally well by Secret Life's Shailene Woodley. There are a lot of elements in this film that play out like a regular comedy, as there are some well-earned laughs, but at the same time, it's a tragic family drama. The script, direction, acting perfectly balances out the comedy and drama where it leaves you coming out of the movie feeling like $1,000,000 as well as a piece of shit. Isn't that weird? Well, that's the type of film they set out to make, and they did it quite successfully in my opinion. Number 8. Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol. With movies like Fast 5 and X-Men First Class giving each of their franchises a much-needed upgrade, Ghost Protocol continues the trend, but does so on such an epic level that all others feel puny in comparison. It's the Mission Impossible movie that anyone could hope for, as it not only ups the ante on the action and impossible stunts, it focuses mostly on the team, which have been taking the back seats ever since the first movie came out. The action is spectacular, the cast is great, the plot a little corny at times, but hey, it's Mission Impossible, what can you do? All of it combined on the IMAX not only makes it a getaway thrill ride, but an experience you just don't want to miss out on. What else can I say? Ghost Protocol rules. Number 7. Rango. Johnny Depp has always been a very versatile actor, playing in roles that range from kooky, weird, but all around memorable. The same can be said for his role as the title character, who is a talking lizard with an identity crisis who stumbles upon an old town out in the middle of the desert that's undergoing some problems of their own. He ends up becoming the sheriff and inspires hope throughout the town. Don't let the animation aspect fool you, as this is not intended for little kids. It is in fact an ode to classic spaghetti westerns like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and Once Upon a Time in the West. It's also a really trippy film, as it contains a lot of moments that feel like they just came straight out of a whacked out stoner film, kind of like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which coincidentally this movie makes tribute to as well. So if a hallucinogenic talking lizard western epic isn't your cup of tea, you probably won't like this movie. But for everyone else looking for an original, funny, and psychedelic head trip, you should totally consider checking this one out. Without a doubt, Rango is this year's best animated film. Number 6. Attack the Block. Talk about underrated. While everyone else in the world was praising Super 8 and, to a certain extent, Cowboys and Aliens, this little science fiction film did not find the audience it so rightfully deserved. It received a lot of positive feedback when it premiered at South by Southwest, and yet by the time it got a theatrical release, it was only on a limited amount of screens. It's this year's Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, no question about it, as it features the same type of wit, humor, and memorable characters. Heck, the director of Scott Pilgrim helped out in producing this amazing sci-fi gem of a film. If that doesn't entice you to see this movie, then you clearly have no good taste in film whatsoever. So do yourself a favor and buy this movie on DVD or Blu-ray and witness the sheer awesomeness that can only be known as Attack the Block. Number 5. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Out of all the movies to have come out in 2011, this was the movie I was looking forward to the most. I've been a huge fan of Stieg Larsson's book trilogy as well as the Swedish films that came out prior to this new version, but in my opinion, David Fincher's new update easily surpasses the original movies in the best way possible. With his brilliant direction combined with the ingenious script by Steve Zalian, the fantastic music by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and finally the top-notch performances by all the actors involved, especially from up-and-coming actress Rooney Mara as the film's dark and mysterious heroine, Dragon Tattoo may be the feel-bad movie of Christmas, but it's also one of the year's most entertaining thrillers, and I look forward to seeing it for a third time in a row. Number 4. The Tree of Life. Upon my first viewing, I was quite unprepared for what I was about to see, and yet it stuck with me long after it ended. By the time I got the Blu-ray, I realized what an undisputed masterpiece it was. Much like Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, The Tree of Life is more of an emotional journey than it is a cohesive narrative. A lot of the things that happen in the film will not make sense to everyone, but what it tries to achieve is rather fascinating. It confronts the internal struggle in all of humanity whenever we ask ourselves life's most complex questions, like the very meaning of existence, as well as the combating forces of nature and grace. Yes, it's frustrating to sit through as well as challenging to watch, but if you stick with it for a couple of viewings, I'm sure you'll come out of it just as moved and enlightened as I was. Number 3. Drive. Much like The Tree of Life, this is a movie that I could not stop thinking about. The minute it was over, I wanted to watch it again a couple of more times, just so I could relive the atmospheric and dreamlike world that this film created. Ryan Gosling plays the driver, a man who works part-time Hollywood stunt driver by day and a getaway driver for hire at night. He ends up taking on a job that goes horribly wrong and therefore seeks vengeance against the double-crossing gangsters that hired him, as well as ensure the safety of those closest to him. Yes, it may be your typical action thriller plot, but what makes this one so different are the stellar performances, the beautiful cinematography, and the catchy soundtrack, which gives the movie an almost nostalgic 80s retro feel. Subtle, stylish, and at times extremely violent, Drive is a haunting film-going experience that I won't soon forget. Number 2. Midnight in Paris. I've never been a huge fan of Woody Allen's work, but after watching this movie, I definitely felt compelled to see more of his filmography. Owen Wilson is absolutely wonderful as a struggling screenwriter who takes a trip to Paris with his nagging fiancée and future in-laws when, at the stroke of midnight, something amazing happens, which I will not reveal as that would take away all the fun out of it. The characters and situations that occur in this movie are surprisingly hilarious. It's so original, so charming, and endlessly surprising that it had me grinning from beginning to end. It put me in such a great mood that for the longest time I had it as my number 1 film of the year. And then I saw another film that ended up surpassing it, which we'll be talking about very shortly. And the number 1 best film of 2011 is The Artist. Yes, it may be a modern-day black and white silent film, but it's also a fantastic crowd pleaser in the likes of The King's Speech and Slumdog Millionaire, as it's the type of film that'll have everyone cheering and applauding and coming out of it moved and inspired. This movie is great not only because of its technical achievements, but for the extraordinary performances by all the actors involved, including French actor Jean Dujardin, Berenice Bejo, John Goodman, James Cromwell, and even a Jack Russell Terrier. All of them express so much emotion without uttering a single word of dialogue that it grips you all the way to the very last frame. So here's hoping more audiences find out about The Artist, because it is the most entertaining film I've seen all year, as well as the best film of 2011. And those were the best films of 2011. There were so many movies this year that it was hard enough to compile only 10 of them all into one list. So before we close off, let me share with you some of the other films that didn't make the final cut with my honorable mentions. In alphabetical order, they are Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, The Help, Hesher, Moneyball, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Shame, Super, Super 8, Warhorse, and finally, Warrior. If you haven't caught up watching any of these movies I mentioned before, do yourself the favor and seek them out individually. In conclusion, I'm the host, saying have a happy new year and take care.